October 1st wasn't just another date on the royal calendar. Overnight, the monarchy quietly rewrote its own history. Entire sections about Harry and Meghan vanished without a trace, leaving only fragments behind. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. But silence in the monarchy is never neutral. It's a weapon, and the question that follows is devastating. If the palace itself no longer defends their story, then what exactly is left to believe? Consider this. For years, the royal website served as the definitive record of each family member's accomplishments, education, and service. Then suddenly, without explanation, Harry and Meghan's biographical pages underwent what can only be described as a surgical reduction. This wasn't routine maintenance. This was institutional distancing played out in real time. To understand the significance of these changes, we need to examine how the monarchy constructs its public narrative. The royal website isn't just a digital brochure, it's the official historical record, the version of events that will be cited by biographers and historians for generations. Every word is vetted, every claim verified, every accomplishment carefully worded to withstand scrutiny. Royal historian Victoria Arbiter has noted that changes to these official biographies are never casual. They represent shifts in institutional positioning, signals about who remains within the protective embrace of the crown and who has been quietly set adrift. When details disappear, it's not housekeeping, it's historiography. What makes this particularly telling is the selectivity of the edits. Catherine's biography remains robust, detailing her education at St. Andrews, her charitable endeavors, even her family background. Sophie, Countess of Wessex, enjoys similar comprehensive coverage. Every claim on their pages can withstand fact-checking because every claim is demonstrably true. But Harry and Meghan's pages, they've been reduced to what insiders call diplomatic minimalism, the barest facts that cannot be disputed. Meghan is now simply described as a former actress from Suits, who ran a lifestyle blog. Harry's military service remains, but the colorful details of his education have vanished. The transformation is stark and deliberate. Looking back, the signs were there from the beginning. Notice the pattern in how certain stories evolved over time. Meghan's narrative about her Northwestern education provides a fascinating case study. Initially, she claimed a double major in theater and international relations, an impressive combination suggesting both creative talent and intellectual depth. This wasn't the first time we'd seen this trajectory. The story grew more elaborate with each telling. Yet Northwestern University doesn't actually offer a degree program specifically called International Relations. The closest equivalent is International Studies. Moreover, questions have persisted about whether she completed her final semester in 2003, with staff members unable to confirm her presence at graduation. But there was something else happening beneath these embellishments. Sources familiar with royal protocol revealed that the palace initially accepted these biographical claims at face value, trusting that their newest member wouldn't fabricate easily verifiable details. This trust, it seems, was misplaced. The Argentina internship story follows a similar arc. What Meghan described as an official U.S. embassy posting in Buenos Aires was, according to those present at the time, something rather different. Industry veterans familiar with State Department protocols note that official internships require extensive vetting and formal documentation, none of which appears to exist for this particular posting. Consider what this really meant for the palace. Here was an institution built on careful documentation and verified lineage, suddenly finding itself defending claims that couldn't withstand basic scrutiny. The situation became increasingly untenable as fact-checkers and royal watchers began comparing the official narrative with verifiable records. The timing is important here. These edits came just as renewed attention focused on Harry's own academic history. For years, whispers about his time at Eton had circulated in aristocratic circles. The story of a teacher allegedly completing coursework on his behalf, serious enough to result in the teacher's dismissal, had long been dismissed as rumor. But palace sources now suggest there was substance to these concerns. According to insiders familiar with the situation, Harry's academic struggles were significant enough to potentially disqualify him from Sandhurst, the prestigious military academy. That he was admitted anyway speaks to the considerable influence wielded on his behalf. What few people realized was how these parallel narratives, Meghan's embellished accomplishments, and Harry's assisted achievements, created a credibility crisis for the monarchy. As biographer Robert Jobson observed, the institution's strength lies in its perceived adherence to truth and tradition. When that perception erodes, the entire edifice becomes vulnerable. The palace's response was characteristically strategic. Rather than engage in public refutation, which would only amplify the controversies, they chose the path of selective amnesia. By removing questionable claims from the official record, they effectively declared, "These stories no longer have our imprimatur." Looking at the pattern reveals something larger than personal embarrassment. What we're witnessing is the monarchy's attempt to control its historical narrative in the digital age, a challenge previous generations of royals never faced. Unlike Diana's era, when palace communications could be carefully managed through traditional media relationships, today's information environment is uncontrollable. Every claim can be fact-checked instantly. Screenshots preserve original versions of stories. Digital archaeologists excavate contradictions with gleeful precision. The palace, an institution that has survived through careful management of its image, suddenly found itself unable to contain the narrative proliferation. Sources within the palace revealed that senior advisors had long debated how to handle what one insider called the credibility gap. The decision to strip the biographies rather than defend them represents a significant shift in strategy. It's an admission, however tacit, that some battles aren't worth fighting. But there's a crucial difference between Harry and Meghan's situation and previous royal controversies. When other royals faced scrutiny, Andrew's associations, Charles's infidelities, the institution could compartmentalize the damage. These were personal failings that didn't challenge the fundamental truthfulness of the monarchy's self-presentation. Harry and Meghan's embellishments strike at something more fundamental: the reliability of the royal narrative itself. If their biographies contained fiction, what else might be fabricated? This question, more than any personal scandal, threatens the institution's credibility. Royal protocol expert Grant Harold has noted that American ambition and British discretion have always been uneasy bedfellows. Meghan's background in Hollywood, where narrative construction is both art and survival skill, prepared her for many things, but not for an institution where every claim would be microscopically examined. The Disneyland graduation story exemplifies this collision of cultures. In Hollywood, such anecdotes are currency, colorful details that make one memorable in meetings and interviews. But when Meghan's high school confirmed no such event occurred in 1999, what might have been dismissed as harmless embellishment became evidence of a pattern. Industry insiders familiar with both worlds suggest that Meghan may not have initially understood the different stakes involved. In entertainment, reinvention is celebrated. In monarchy, authenticity, or at least its appearance, is everything. This fundamental misunderstanding may have set the stage for the current crisis. Harry's role in this drama is equally complex. Having grown up within the institution, he understood its demands for documentary precision. Yet he appears to have enabled or at least acquiesced to his wife's narrative expansions. Sources close to the prince suggest this represented his own form of rebellion against an institution he'd long found suffocating. By early October 2025, the palace faced a choice. They could continue defending increasingly indefensible claims, risking further erosion of credibility, or they could perform what amounts to a digital amputation, removing the infected tissue to save the body. The decision to minimize rather than defend represents a new strategy for an ancient institution. As royal historian Hugo Vickers observed, the monarchy has always understood that controlling the historical record means controlling the narrative. But in the digital age, the record has become democratized, archived, and endlessly searchable. What's particularly damaging is how these revelations interact with Harry and Meghan's commercial ventures. Their Netflix deals, speaking engagements, and publishing contracts all rest on their credibility as truth-tellers, as brave souls willing to challenge institutional power. But if they've embellished their own stories, what does that say about their other claims? Friends of the couple have suggested privately that both Harry and Meghan now recognize the strategic error of overselling their backgrounds. But the internet's memory is unforgiving. Screenshots of the original biographies circulate endlessly, each contradiction cataloged and analyzed by an army of amateur investigators. Behind all the public drama lies a simpler truth. Two people who could have been extraordinary simply by being themselves chose instead to be ordinary while claiming to be exceptional. Meghan's actual story, a biracial woman who worked her way through Hollywood's brutal hierarchy to achieve success, is genuinely impressive. It didn't need embellishment. Similarly, Harry's genuine service in Afghanistan, his creation of the Invictus Games, his advocacy for mental health, these are substantial achievements that stand on their own merit. The tragedy is that by inflating their narratives, they've undermined their actual accomplishments. What makes their situation particularly poignant is that both seem to have been driven by deep insecurity rather than simple dishonesty. Palace sources suggest that Meghan felt she needed to match the educational credentials of Kate, while Harry struggled with long-standing academic comparisons to William. Instead of embracing their authentic selves, they constructed versions they thought would be more palatable, more impressive, more worthy of respect. The irony is that these embellishments have achieved the opposite effect, casting doubt on everything they say and undermining their genuine achievements. As we examine where things stand today, the pattern that emerged in those October website edits seems to be setting the template for how the palace will handle the Sussexes going forward. Not with confrontation or public refutation, but with quiet editing, selective memory, and strategic silence. Whether Harry and Meghan can recover from this credibility crisis remains uncertain. What's clear is that the digital age has fundamentally changed how public figures can manage their narratives. In an era where every claim can be verified and every contradiction preserved, the luxury of reinvention has become a liability. Royal historians point to this moment as potentially transformative for the monarchy itself. The institution that has survived through careful image management must now navigate an environment where image management itself becomes suspect. The question isn't just about Harry and Meghan anymore. It's about how any public institution maintains authority in an age of radical transparency. The palace's decision to strip rather than defend represents a recognition of this new reality. They can no longer control the narrative through traditional means. Instead, they must rely on something more fundamental: demonstrable truth. Those whose biographies can withstand scrutiny remain fully documented. Those whose stories require creative interpretation find themselves digitally diminished. What we're left with is a question that extends beyond royal drama. In an age where personal branding requires constant narrative construction, but where every construction can be instantly deconstructed, how does anyone maintain both authenticity and authority? The Sussexes may be providing a cautionary tale that resonates far beyond palace walls. The real tragedy isn't that Harry and Meghan embellished their stories. It's that they believed they needed to. In a world that increasingly values authenticity over authority, their genuine struggles and achievements would have resonated more deeply than any fabricated credentials ever could. But that realization may have come too late to salvage what's been lost. Not just their place on a website, but their place in the institution's trust. Whether this represents the final chapter or merely another turning point in their story remains to be written. But what's certain is that October 1st, 2025 marked a watershed moment, the day the palace stopped protecting the mythology and started protecting the monarchy.